Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. A looming default now averted. President Biden touting the debt ceiling agreement after the bill gets the green light from Congress. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
And President Biden is hoping to sign the bill to raise the nation's debt ceiling as soon as this Saturday. That's according to the White House, which on Friday touted the bill as a major win. Watch.
The bipartisan budget agreement protects our historic and hard-earned economic recovery. It is a testament to the president's strength that more Democrats than Republicans in both House of Congress voted for this bill.
In a Friday statement, President Biden also says that he looks forward to signing the bill while adding that this bill protects the major accomplishments under his administration. And the victory lap here comes after the Senate on Thursday night passed a bill with more Democrats supporting it than Republicans, as was the case in the House. About 2/3 of Republican senators voted against it, with some of them complaining that this bill does not go as far as they wanted to cut spending.
The plan has no limits. They borrow as much money as they can possibly borrow until January of 2025.
This bill will raise the nation's debt ceiling through the next 2 years while capping non-defense spending. But it does not make real cuts to some of President Biden's major programs like the student loan cancellation plan or the Inflation Reduction Act.
We got more votes because the bill beat back the worst of the Republican agenda.
But the Republican lawmakers who support this bill say that it's a major win for the GOP because they did get Biden to concede on making some spending cuts. So the messaging war here from both sides is expected to go on even after this bill becomes law. Meanwhile, the White House on Friday gave this update about President Biden's major fall on Thursday.
There was no need for the doctor to see him as it was related to the fall, and he's doing fine.
The White House adds that President Biden was tripped by a sandbag on the stage but quickly got back up. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
The House Oversight Committee today making headway in their investigation into President Biden's alleged bribery scheme. The FBI has agreed to bring an internal document to Congress to be reviewed next Monday. Some Republicans say the document will shed light on an allegation that then Vice President Joe Biden was involved in a bribery scheme with a foreign national. The top two members of the House Oversight Committee will receive a briefing from the FBI and review the form behind closed doors in a secure facility known as the SCIF. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer subpoenaed FBI Director Christopher Wray for the document last month. The FBI had initially offered to have Comer review the document at FBI headquarters, but the Bureau backed down after the director was facing a potential contempt of Congress charge. And the House Oversight Committee's recent move to potentially hold the FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress has stirred significant attention and raised questions about the Biden family's business dealings. The committee's subpoena for documents related to these dealings, which may implicate the Bidens in potential criminal activity, has now captured the interest of many. And here with us to discuss, we're happy to have former constitutional law professor at George Mason University, Horace Cooper. Horace Cooper, thank you so much for joining us.
It's nice to be on the program.
Horace, it now appears that the House Oversight Committee has actually gotten the attention of FBI Director Christopher Wray after the director would potentially be held in contempt of Congress for not complying with the subpoena for documents related to the Biden family's business dealings. What do you make of this?
Well, it's pretty clear the Speaker, Mr. McCarthy, the Chairman, Mr. Comer, are insisting that the prerogatives that are due to a constitutional body like the House of Representatives are going to be honored. This isn't about negotiation. This isn't about lame excuses. The FBI director initially refused to acknowledge that there were any documents like the ones that were being subpoenaed, that they even existed. The FBI director finally said, well, come over to the FBI itself, and we're going to place tight restrictions on your ability to view, and you can take some notes. That's actually not how a subpoena works. If you and I were subpoenaed, we would not be allowed to say, A, we don't have it. That's actually classic obstruction of justice. And B, we couldn't place limits on the ability of the subpoena issuer to actually receive the document. So it's troubling that the important national domestic law enforcement agency, the FBI, is acting like they don't know the basics of how a subpoena works.
Certainly seems curious, Horace. So from a constitutional perspective, what are the legal standards and requirements for initiating this type of investigation into potential wrongdoing by a public official or their family members? And are you confident by looking at what you've seen so far, these standards have been met?
The House Oversight Committee has perhaps the broadest jurisdiction to issue subpoenas and to investigate of any committee in the House of Representatives. And as a consequence of that, when they say that they would like to understand further a particular issue, courts, including the Supreme Court, have recognized that this broad authority to investigate must be honored. In the case of the House Oversight Committee, it's the equivalent of a federal magistrate issuing a subpoena. You may not deny it, you may not ignore it, you must comply with it. You know, at the end of the day, they could choose contempt, but the House of Representatives could actually send its own police force over and grab an individual and hold them in the House of Representatives. There is still a jail that is a holding cell in the basement of the House of Representatives. The Supreme Court understands, recognizes this. It did not come to that, thankfully, but we are still in the early phases of this investigation. As you know, the whistleblowers who are also reporting other evidence about Hunter Biden, we still are going to have to hear from them and also what evidence that they have identified.
Horace, with regard to Hunter Biden, how do you assess the damage that has been done, if you will, in terms of, the media, mainstream media en masse, who basically wrote off the laptop story as Russian disinformation?
Well, our founders provided a corporate or business interest in the Constitution. That is the First Amendment. It broadly protects the right of a company that's in the interest of promoting information for the American people. And our founders did that because they believed an educated and informed public would be better at self-government. The shame of this, the absolute shame of this, you look through our Constitution and you'll see no other type of company or corporation is protected. The shame of it is that these companies, instead of living up to the responsibilities of informing and educating the American people, they have acted as cheerleaders for this particular administration. It is this movement by the left, the mainstream media, to hide the information about the laptop, to hide the information about perhaps misdeeds or government corruption or private corruption that this laptop reveals. There was a time when the mainstream media thought it was its job to check, to always pursue and make sure that no one who sat in the White House, no one who sat in Congress could in any way be accused of any misdeeds or impropriety. Shame on them, because today the mainstream media has its winners and its losers, and in fact, the American people lose as a result.
Horace Cooper, a very important and sober reminder of freedom of the press. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And new January 6th footage has been released. House Republicans made videotapes available to 3 media outlets. NTD's Arian Pazdar takes a look.
The new video shows Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's daughter walking in front of security and filming the Congresswoman. That's as they evacuated the Capitol building to seek shelter. Some are now saying Pelosi used January 6 to make money off the footage. Just the News is one of 3 media outlets receiving this footage from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Nancy Pelosi's daughter can be seen walking in front of her to get shots for a documentary. That's as the Congresswoman was trying to evacuate the Capitol. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, works as a filmmaker. She made an HBO documentary about the Congresswoman called Pelosi in the House. A year after January 6, Pelosi spoke to the Associated Press, recalling the events.
What I remember the most, and will never forget, is the trauma that I saw in the eyes of the young people who were present for that violence.
After releasing the new footage this week, Congresswoman Greene told the outlet that the Pelosis ignored various safety precautions.
They used that situation to film it so that their family could make millions of dollars later by selling the video footage in a documentary.
However, Alexandra previously responded to similar allegations. She told Salon.com earlier this year, "I was never making a movie about Nancy Pelosi. There's never a microphone. A lot of it was filmed without her consent. She never gave me permission to film her. We did not sit down on a couch and hug it out and decide that we are going to make a propaganda film about Nancy Pelosi." Now, Congresswoman Greene says they're planning to make public even more January 6 footage. However, she says this comes with a lot of security risks, as the footage could expose safety measures inside the Capitol. She also says the footage could lead to the arrest of innocent protesters who can be identified in the footage. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.